This is an 1844 bill of slave, which was my great-great-grandmother's. And in my research and my history, I contacted the family that owned her. And so do the research and the contact. This was given to me by them. The black children should be aware of their history and the contributions they made to the struggles and the future perseverance that they do. But every generation will learn something from their historical or their history or their journey. And that's what keeps me going so much with Black history, because I talk about it and I said, well, it's going to be that month. Let's celebrate, let's embrace, let's empower, let's love, let's unify. And that's what we want to see.
Black history is part of American history. It's a history that has been intentionally left out of the process.
I think that it is important. How can other races appreciate the work that we have accomplished now if they don't know where we came from? It's not possible.
Black history is a very integral part of American history. I think everything that we hold high in American history, African Americans have played a large role in. I think when you sit down and celebrate the accomplishments of this country, it's impossible to take African American contributions from those roles.
Every school should have, every family that is a non-Black family needs to educate themselves on the Black history, because it is rich and it's full, and it is so important to where we go from here.
I'm gonna sound real cliche when I say this. Black history is world history. Black history is American history. Black history is Fort Smith history. You can't even dissect history. In no continent on the globe without Black history. It's impossible.
You need to know a little bit about Black people to have some feelings from what they may be going through. And that's very important.
Once you embrace it and see what we go through, you have empathy for others, you know.
If it's not embraced, you can't learn. And history is a learning process. And as much as some people try to ignore it, it doesn't mean that it didn't exist.
Black history in Fort Smith dates back to the beginning of Fort Smith itself. Peter Calder, a veteran of the War of 1812, was assigned to the command of Major William Bradford when General Thomas Smith ordered them to establish a fort on the upper Arkansas River. In November 1817, Peter Calder climbed out of a 6-oar skiff onto a flat rock the French called Belle Point. Here, they were instructed to build a fort to be named after his commanding general, Thomas Smith. Peter was accompanied by 3 of his fellow brothers in the free Black community, including Martin Turner, Joseph Clark, and Caleb Cook. Calder served on the frontier until the Arkansas General Assembly passed a law in 1859 expelling any free people categorized as Black to be enslaved.
Fort Smith had this, from the very beginning, history of diversity and cooperation. And I think that kind of stuck through the ages.
The founding of Fort Smith goes back to African Americans. The first 60 plus guys around there that come to Fort Smith in 1817, December 25th, you have 4 African American soldiers, free Black men that signed up with the U.S. military and come here. And they serve alongside white soldiers. There was no segregation at that time. Black troops that fought alongside white troops in the Civil War, beating the 54th Massachusetts, and they're here. They had some of the highest casualty rates of any of the Kansas unit. They were, like I said, the first African American troops ever fought in the Civil War, and they're here at Fort Smith. This isn't halfway across the country. This isn't somewhere else. This isn't back in the Eastern Theater. This is our city. As they come here, they're freeing all the local slaves. And so you see the 11th USCT, the United States Colored Troop Units, join up. And these are not from far away. They're not from Kansas, like the Kansas unit. they're locals. These are guys who are now fighting in their own communities against people who had at one time owned them. They knew that by fighting, if they're captured, they're either returned to slavery or they're killed. That's it. I mean, hell on earth or death. And they knew that, and they fought anyways. And you have them by the hundreds in cases, I add them up by the thousands of guys that would serve over here.
There's a lot of other examples of how the white soldiers associated completely with the African American soldiers here.
And some of the first noted marriages that took place by the Freedmen's Bureau, which was trying to help the ex-slaves learn how to read and write and go on with life and be educated. They're also conducting some of the first African American weddings here. And so we know the troops stay here and they're actually marrying people.
Mamie Josenberger was born in New York. She attended the Oswego Free Academy and then earned her Bachelor of Arts degree at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. Her classmates were W.E.B. Du Bois and Margaret Murray Washington, wife of Booker T. Washington. After graduation, Mamie moved to Fort Smith to teach at Howard School. She also taught at Lincoln High School. In 1892, she married William Josenberger, who was well known in the Fort Smith black community, having been a postman. Always interested in the needs of the community and in social justice, Mamie left the teaching profession in 1901 to focus on those issues, ultimately becoming respected on a national level in those circles. When her husband passed away in 1909, Mamie took over the family business. She became a member of the National Negro Business League, founded by her old friend Booker T. Washington. Their stated goal was to promote the commercial and financial development of the Negro. Inspired, Mamie acquired what became Josenberger Hall on 9th Street. It became a popular African-American entertainment venue. Nationally famous performers who appeared at Josenberger Hall included Christine Chapman and her orchestra, King Kolax and his NBC band, and Irwin C. Miller's brown-skinned models. Her business acumen and social justice activities led to her being widely admired in Fort Smith and beyond. Because of her accomplishments, she paved the way for many individuals in early Fort Smith.
And the 600 block was where the hub was. And I remember as a kid that to go from one end to the other, you had to walk in the street to get back up on the sidewalk because the sidewalks would be full of people. Because you had maybe 5 different buildings, and the main building was the 2-story building that was maybe half the length of the 600 block on 9th. And upstairs was the Oreo Club that took the entire top floor. And downstairs was the drugstore, barbershop, beer tavern, and cleaners.
In those days on 9th Street, entertainers, black entertainers, were always coming through Fort Smith. People like B.B. King, Lil Milton, Ike and Tina Turner even, they performed at the Oreo Club on 9th Street. We had all these people come through Fort Smith.
My current profession is I'm the proud mayor of the city of Fort Smith, Arkansas. My past profession, I served in the Arkansas legislature, part of my political career. I served 3 terms in that body, a wonderful experience. And also, I own the McGill Insurance and Financial Services Agency here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Built that business and it was a staple in the community for 30 years. My role and the way I've conducted my business and the way I've conducted my life have to go back to the culture that was in my family. And so my father and mother believed in public service. They believed in helping others, put it that way. They believed in making sure that no one in our neighborhood went hungry. I took that teaching and that training and applied it to my business. And so my focus in business always was to deliver the kind of service that was much, much more than what people would expect.
McGill family has always been very, very positive and supportive in doing things like trying to make a difference in the area. and doing it the right way has always been their way. Mayor McGill was my guy, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know what I'd have done without him.
When McGill and I were in high school, the nation had begun to kind of change where it was like, you know how it's real dark and then you just get a glimpse of the sun barely coming up? That would be kind of the feeling that we would have through the civil rights movement. But there was time that it didn't seem like we were going to really get too far, into the process of getting anywhere. And to see what we saw, which wasn't much, and now to see him in office like high noon, that it's great to have an individual that you went to school with in a time that black people didn't see too much of nothing in living in the South. To see McGill to stay and fight the fight and then become.
And at that particular time in history, Fort Smith, Sebastian County, if you will, had the highest number of black elected officials in the state of Arkansas. From 2 school board members, a member of the board of directors, we had a state representative, we had our first black police chief, we had our first black mayor, we had 2 justices of the peace, and then we had a county clerk. And it was wonderful to see that unfold. So that's the type of history that we have today, and we must celebrate that. But in addition to that, we also must celebrate the people of the past who helped them to be who they were.
And our high school was built on excellence. So we didn't think about what others were doing. Our goal was to always be excellent in whatever we were doing as it pertains to Lincoln High School. And whatever we did in the community, the goal was to be excellent at that. And I recall the choirs that we had, the high school choir we had, was oftentimes confused with some college choir. Even though we were high school students, our choir was just that good. Had a championship state band. Our football, all of our athletic programs excelled. But the most important thing that you could do at our high school was make the honor roll. That was the most prestigious thing to do at our high school, was be on the honor roll. So people would work very hard for academic success.
We had some extraordinary teachers, wonderful, wonderful teachers. And a lot of our teachers came from other states, and in the East, in the North, and highly educated. Most of them had master's degrees. They brought all that learning with them. And they taught us, besides teaching the classes, regular reading, writing, and math and English and all that, they brought that culture. We were supposed to surprise people by our actions. People expect you to act one way. We're always supposed to surprise them with our good manners, with our pleasant attitude, with our intelligence. This was what was stressed to us.
That's the way our school was. It was based on excellence because we knew excellence was the key to becoming successful. So we weren't concerned about how poor we were or the things we may not have had. Our focus was on excelling in the things that we were taught that were important. Education, your self-esteem, proper dress, grooming. Those were the things that we concentrated on.
I mean, it gives me such a sense of pride when you look at people like George McGill, class of '64, Lincoln High School, Charlotte Tidwell, her successful parents. She's known all over the nation. She has put Fort Smith on the map. 1964, Lincoln High School. I don't know, the things that the teachers stressed to us, we got it. We got it. And it caused us to be successful adults. And I think Fort Smith is a better place for it. We still don't realize the impact of Lincoln. But even all over the country, anywhere a Lincoln graduate has gone and worked, they have excelled. They have made names for themselves.
And there's story after story after story of people that come out of Fort Smith that have gone on to achieve great things. And the common thread on all of those individuals that we talked about is this sense of excellence, this sense of getting the job done.
There was such an imminence for us to give all that we could to those young black minds, because we never knew when one of them would be somebody special. All of them were great, and all of them we tried to cultivate, but we never knew where their lives were going to take them. So our real deed was to try to make them feel proud now so that they would be prouder later. I got in the trenches with the young people, not just the blacks, but also the Hispanics, also the whites, anybody that would listen, but anybody that came in my classroom had no choice. I gave them no choice. I was on a mission. I knew what my mission was, and I tried to live up to it all through my teaching career.
We have a good relationship with all people, and it doesn't really matter what color skin you have. You're going to be treated on how you act and how you communicate with people, how you respect people. That's what it's all about. And the kids that went to Lincoln, that came to Northside that I was fortunate enough to coach, they loved Lincoln High School and they missed that part of it, but they also bought into Northside too. And so that's important too. They got to experience the best of both worlds, Lincoln High School and Northside High School.
The community embraced Lincoln athletes and students coming over to Northside. So they all just wrapped their hands around us. And so we never did have any problems.
But I remember when Almer and a guy by the name of Jackson, last name's Jackson, and Jerry came over, plus a few others. They came at semester and they turned the team into a championship team. It was a fun team.
Those guys were my mentors toward sports. Back then, Lincoln High School was all black high school. Talent-wise, they might have been the best players to come out of there playing basketball. When Lincoln was closed, they ended up going to Northside, Almer and Jerry. So when they played, which they were 10th graders, you couldn't wait for Tuesday, Fridays, because Northside Stadium was packed. And if you didn't get there in time, you didn't get a chance to see the game. So when we got there, we got a good rude awakening of how both sports or basketball was supposed to be played. And I said, this is what I want to do. And so the rest of it's history.
A solo job by Brewer right there. 2, 1, there it is. Good. They win it. Ron Brewer wins it for Arkansas. What a tremendous way to win it. You knew that he was going to just wait. With 2 seconds left, he let it go, and there it was.
College coaches were coming in. College coaches were coming to Northside High School and sitting in the office with our coaches to figure out what is so different about you guys.
You had to know Gil Condor. Gil Condor is probably one of the best basketball coaches ever coached in the state of Arkansas. But he was a very tough, hard-nosed, old-school coach. Very serious about everything he did. First time that Almer Lee went down the court and took the ball behind his back and went in for the layup and made it. I mean, I was there right behind Coach Condor, and he came up out of his chair and said, "What?" And he wasn't ready for that. And then the next time, Almer came down the court, he was chewing bubble gum, and he lost it out of his guy guarding pretty good, and Alma was dribbling down the court, and he lost the gum out of his mouth and went down the floor. Well, Alma just kept dribbling, picked up the gum, put it back in his mouth, and went on down the court. Well, it's things like that. And man, I tell you what, the Gil Conrad Field House, it's named after now, it was just a new era at Northside High School and in Fort Smith. And that was fun, and it's still that way.
Well, Ron's brother, Jimmy, who was older than Ron, was the original boothead.
The story that was told to me was that his head was shaped like a boot. Big head, big long head, you know what I'm saying? And because I was his brother, I became boothead, you know what I'm saying? Then it became my brother, Lil Boot. Then when Ron Jr. was born, they started saying baby boot, and I said, no, that's where we're gonna stop. I'll never forget, there was a story, I was playing for the Portland Trailblazers, I was playing Denver, and after the ball game, our trainer would come to the bus after he got all the uniforms. And when he would come to the bus, if he beat you to the bus, that means you got fined. You know what I'm saying? And so after the game, there's always a line of people wanting to sign get autograph signed. Well, I'm one of the last people to go into the bus, and I'm signing these autographs, and there was a lady and 2 kids, and I'll never forget this to this day. And she says, the little girl says, "See, Mom, I told you he wasn't gonna be able to sign an autograph." And then the lady responded back, "Boothead will sign it." And when she said that, I told our trainer, "Wait 1 minute." I said, because you can't get on this bus because they from Arkansas. And she was from Fort Smith.
What the future holds for Fort Smith is going to be incredible. And we're going to be positioned to be a staging point for many companies. In the first 2 weeks of this year, major new businesses moving to town, paying much higher wages than we've seen in manufacturing and industry. And they've done their due diligence. Why should we bring our company to Fort Smith? And when we begin to tell our story, people find it a place to be, find it a place to bring their families, the low cost of living, the amazing weather we have. That makes it very conducive to having a great quality of life when it comes to entertainment, outdoor activities. We're in a great place.
It's just a great place to be, really. It really is. And boy, we've got the greatest mayor in Arkansas, or in the country. Mayor McGill, he's a good guy and doing a great job. And it goes to show you that he was elected a mayor because he's a good man. And he does a good job, and we appreciate that very much.
Whatever you want to do, you can find it on this end of the state. Between the Missouri border and Fort Smith, it's all available. And more people are finding this region as a region to come and start a business, or a region to bring your families. We've got it all.
You know, one day I was having a conversation with Andre Good, Director Good, and I said, Andre, when you're no longer here, you know, when Mayor McGill is no longer here, who catches the baton? Now, I ran track at Northside. I was anchor leg. It's pretty fast. You know, I ran the mile relay and the 2 mile relay. But I think my role is to catch the baton when it's time to catch that baton and run with it. And not just catch the baton, but put other people in place that when it's time for me to pass the baton, that the legacy continues.
Black history is intimately intertwined with Fort Smith history. Early black pioneers helped build the fort, defended it, and settled around it. Through strong leadership, cooperation, and a vision that embraced faith, education, and community, they overcame the extraordinary challenges that defined African American and Arkansas history. And when tomorrow comes, new generations will pick up the baton and carry it forward with determination, ambition, and strength.
Our Our history is our history, and this is what we should be celebrating, coming together as one to create the ultimate community.